The maid accidentally burned the fiancée's dress. So the fiancée tried to burn her hand, until the billionaire walked in. "You ruined my dress. Now I'm going to ruin your hand." Rosa's fingers trembled as the hot iron hovered inches from her skin. She had scrubbed floors, ironed silk, and swallowed insults for 3 years in this house, but nothing prepared her for this moment. The woman gripping her wrist wasn't just angry. She was someone else entirely. Somewhere behind her, a door creaked open. A step. A voice that would change everything. But right now in this room, only one question mattered. Would anyone stop her in time? What happened next shocked the entire household, and nobody saw it coming. Welcome back, friends, to another emotional journey that will touch your heart. Today's story is filled with heartbreak, injustice, redemption, and a twist you will never forget. This is a tale about kindness buried under wealth, and the courage it takes to find it again. Before we begin, tell us in the comments, what country are you watching from? Now, let's step into the Whitfield mansion, where one burned dress was about to change 3 lives forever. Rosa Martinez had one job left before the biggest party of the year, and it was about to go terribly wrong. The autumn sun poured gold light through the tall windows of the Whitfield estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, as Rosa Martinez pressed the last wrinkle out of a blush pink gown. She had worked in this house for 3 years, ever since her husband passed away and left her raising 2 children alone. The Whitfield mansion, with its marble floors and crystal chandeliers, was a world away from the small apartment she shared with her son and daughter in Bridgeport. But Rosa never complained. She believed hard work and quiet dignity were worth more than any paycheck. Rosa had started as a part-time cleaner, but her gentle nature and careful hands earned her a place as the personal housekeeper for Vanessa Sterling, the fiancée of billionaire Daniel Whitfield. When Rosa first met Vanessa, she remembered a different woman, someone who once brought her leftover cake from a bakery downtown, who once asked about Rosa's children by name, who once sat on the kitchen floor helping Rosa's daughter with a school project because family is family, even the ones we hire. That Vanessa felt like a distant memory now. Vanessa Sterling had not always been wealthy. She grew up in a modest home in Ohio, the daughter of a schoolteacher and a mechanic. She used to volunteer at soup kitchens on weekends. She used to believe that everyone, rich or poor, deserved respect. But 3 years of engagement to Daniel Whitfield, heir to a real estate empire worth billions, had introduced her to a new circle. Women who measured friendship in designer labels, who whispered behind manicured hands about the help, who taught Vanessa that softness was a weakness the wealthy could not afford. Slowly, without even realizing it, Vanessa had changed. She started correcting Rosa's grammar in front of guests. She stopped remembering her children's names. She began speaking about people like that, as though Rosa wasn't standing 3 feet away. Daniel noticed the change too, though he told himself it was just stress from planning their engagement gala. He loved Vanessa, or at least he loved the woman she used to be, and he hoped that woman was still somewhere inside her. Tonight was the night of the Whitfield Foundation Gala, a black-tie charity event that would be attended by senators, celebrities, and the wealthiest families on the East Coast. Vanessa had chosen this dress specifically, a custom, hand-beaded gown flown in from a designer in Milan, worth more than Rosa's entire annual salary. She had reminded Rosa 4 times that morning, "This dress must be perfect. Tonight is the most important night of my life." Rosa understood the pressure. She had seen Vanessa pacing the hallways since dawn, snapping at the florist, criticizing the seating chart, rejecting 3 different hairstyles. Something about tonight mattered to Vanessa in a way that went beyond fashion. What Rosa didn't know was that Daniel planned to announce their engagement publicly for the first time in front of the press, sealing Vanessa's place in New York's most elite social circles forever. For Vanessa, this night was everything she had worked to become. As Rosa carefully guided the iron along the delicate fabric, her mind wandered to her daughter, Sophia, who had a school recital that same evening. Rosa had promised she would try to leave early, even if just for 20 minutes, to see her daughter sing. She glanced at the clock. 15. If she finished quickly, she might still make it. That single distracted thought was all it took. The iron, moving a fraction too close to the edge, brushed against a loose gold ribbon on the gown's shoulder. In an instant, a hiss and a thin curl of gray smoke rose into the air. Rosa gasped and yanked the iron back, but it was too late. A dark, scorched mark, small but unmistakable, had burned into the delicate silk, right at the center of the bodice, exactly where the fabric caught the light most beautifully. Rosa's heart dropped into her stomach. She stared at the mark, her hands shaking. This wasn't just fabric. This was Vanessa's dream dress, the one she had shown to every friend, the one she had insisted must be flawless. Rosa knew in that instant that her small mistake was about to become a very large problem. She thought about hiding it. She thought about running to the seamstress down the street to see if it could be fixed in time. But there was no time. The gala started in less than 3 hours, and Vanessa was already upstairs getting her hair finished. Rosa's hands trembled as she smoothed the dress, praying silently that somehow, someway, this could be repaired. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Quick, sharp, familiar. Vanessa's heels clicked against the marble with the confident rhythm of a woman used to getting exactly what she wanted. Rosa's breath caught in her throat. She had maybe 10 seconds before Vanessa walked through that door and saw what had happened. Rosa thought of her children. She thought of her rent. She thought of every reason she needed this job to survive. And in that moment, she made a choice that would set everything else in motion. She would tell the truth, no matter what it cost her. The door swung open. "Rosa, is the dress ready? I need to try it on before." Vanessa stopped mid-sentence. Her eyes locked onto the small, dark burn mark glowing under the chandelier light. The room fell completely silent, except for the soft hum of the ironing board steam still rising into the air. For one long, terrifying moment, nobody moved. What Vanessa said next would reveal just how far she had drifted from the woman she used to be. "What?" Vanessa said slowly, each word sharp as glass. "Is that?" Rosa's mouth went dry. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. The iron slipped for just a second. I didn't mean." "You didn't mean to." Vanessa's voice rose, cracking through the quiet room like a whip. She stepped closer, her manicured fingers reaching out to touch the burnt fabric as though she couldn't believe what she was seeing. "Do you have any idea what this dress cost? Do you have any idea what tonight means? I can call the tailor, maybe there's a way to." "There is no way," Vanessa snapped. "This dress was made in Milan. It was flown here on a private courier. Cannot be fixed in 3 hours, Rosa. Cannot be replaced. It is ruined. Because of you." Rosa lowered her eyes, her hands clasped tightly in front of her apron. "I understand you're upset. I'll take responsibility. Please dock my pay. I'll pay for." "You'll pay for it." Vanessa let out a short, bitter laugh. "Rosa, you don't make in a year what this dress costs. You couldn't pay for it if you worked here for the rest of your life." The words landed like a slap. Rosa had heard cruel comments before. Small jabs about her accent, offhand remarks about people from her background, but never anything this direct, this cold. She thought of the woman who once brought her lunch from the deli because Rosa had forgotten hers. She wondered where that woman had gone. Vanessa's friend, Caroline Ashford Pierce, appeared in the doorway, drawn by the commotion. Caroline was one of Vanessa's new social circle friends. Elegant, sharp-tongued, and always ready to fan a flame. "Oh my goodness, what happened?" Caroline gasped, taking in the scene. "Vanessa, is that your Milan gown? Did she do this?" "She burned it," Vanessa said, her voice trembling now, though whether from anger or something deeper, even she couldn't tell. 3 hours before the biggest night of my life, and she burned it. Caroline crossed her arms, looking at Rosa the way someone might look at a stain on a carpet. "You should let her go, Vanessa. Honestly." These people never understand the value of the things they're trusted with. These people. The phrase echoed in Rosa's mind. She thought of her son, Miguel, 12 years old, who dreamed of becoming an engineer. She thought of Sophia, waiting at her school recital right now, watching the doors for a mother who might not make it in time. Rosa was not these people. She was a mother, a widow, a woman doing everything she could to survive with dignity. But dignity in this room seemed to matter to no one but her. Something inside Vanessa snapped. Maybe it was the pressure of the gala. Maybe it was Caroline's voice in her ear, feeding the fire. Maybe it was 3 years of slowly forgetting who she used to be. Whatever the reason, Vanessa reached out and grabbed Rosa's wrist, her grip surprisingly tight for someone in delicate lace gloves. "You want to know what it feels like," Vanessa hissed, "to ruin something that matters?" Rosa's eyes widened in fear as Vanessa pulled her hand toward the still-hot iron resting on its stand, steam curling faintly from its surface. "Ma'am, please. Maybe then you'll understand what you took from me." Rosa froze, her body trembling, unable to pull free from Vanessa's surprisingly desperate grip. Caroline, to her credit, took a small step back, her expression flickering with something like doubt, but she said nothing to stop it. In the mansion's grand hallway, footsteps approached. Daniel Whitfield, dressed in his charcoal suit for the evening, had heard raised voices from his study and was walking briskly toward the sound, his expression darkening with every step. "Ma'am, please, my children," Rosa whispered, her voice breaking. "I have children who need me." For just a fraction of a second, something flickered across Vanessa's face. A memory, perhaps, of her own mother's hands, tired from long shifts at the school cafeteria. Hands that had once held her when she cried as a little girl. A memory of the person she used to be. The girl from Ohio who believed kindness cost nothing and meant everything. But the moment passed as quickly as it came. "You should have been more careful," Vanessa said quietly, and pulled Rosa's hand another inch closer to the iron. The door burst open. "Vanessa, what are you doing?" Daniel's voice thundered through the room, filled with a shock and horror that silenced everyone instantly. Vanessa's grip loosened. Rosa yanked her hand free, cradling her wrist, tears streaming down her face. Caroline suddenly found great interest in the pattern of the marble floor. And Vanessa Sterling stood frozen, iron steam still curling in the air, caught in the exact moment she had become someone she no longer recognized. Daniel's eyes moved from Rosa's trembling form, to the burnt dress, to Vanessa's face. "Tell me," he said, his voice dangerously calm, "that I did not just see what I think I saw." What Daniel said next would tear open a secret Vanessa had hidden for 3 years, one far bigger than a burned dress. The room was silent except for Rosa's quiet, shaking breaths. Daniel crossed the space in 3 long strides, kneeling beside Rosa without a second's hesitation. "Are you hurt? Let me see your hand." His voice, so different from the sharp coldness that had filled the room moments earlier, was gentle, urgent, sincere. "I'm okay, sir," Rosa whispered, though her hand still trembled. "It's just a small burn on the dress, I can explain." "I don't care about the dress," Daniel said firmly, examining her wrist. "I care about you." He turned to Vanessa, his jaw tight, his eyes darker than Rosa had ever seen them. "Vanessa, explain to me what I just walked into." Vanessa opened her mouth, but no words came. For the first time in years, she had no smooth explanation, no clever deflection. She simply stood there, the iron steam fading behind her, staring at the man she was supposed to marry in 6 months. "She ruined my dress," Vanessa finally said, though her voice had lost all its earlier fire. "The dress for tonight. The most important night. So you were going to burn her hand?" Daniel's voice cracked with disbelief. "Vanessa, do you hear yourself? This is Rosa. She has worked for this family for 3 years. She has been kind to every person in this house, including you, especially when you didn't deserve it. Daniel, you don't understand the pressure I'm under. I understand that you just tried to hurt an innocent woman over a piece of fabric, Daniel said. I understand that the woman I fell in love with would never, ever have done something like this. Caroline, sensing the danger of being associated with the scene, tried to slip quietly toward the door. I should probably let you two talk. Stay exactly where you are, Caroline, Daniel said sharply, without even turning to look at her. You watched this happen and said nothing. We'll discuss your role in a moment. The room fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. And then the twist that would change everything arrived. Not from Daniel and not from Vanessa, but from Rosa herself. Sir, Rosa said quietly, still cradling her wrist, there's something I think you should know. Something I've wanted to tell you for a long time, but I was afraid. Daniel turned to her, his expression softening. What is it, Rosa? Rosa took a shaky breath. 6 months ago, I found papers in Miss Sterling's study while cleaning. I wasn't looking, I promise, they were just left open on the desk. Financial documents. Documents showing that Miss Sterling has been transferring money from your household accounts into a separate account under her maiden name. Large amounts, sir. Almost $2 million over the past year. The color drained from Vanessa's face. That's a lie, Vanessa said quickly, too quickly. She's lying to save herself, Daniel, don't listen to her. I have the account statements, Rosa continued, her voice growing steadier now, fueled by months of carrying this secret alone. I made copies because I was afraid something like this might happen one day, that I might need to defend myself. They're in a folder in my locker downstairs. I was terrified to tell you, sir. I didn't know who would believe a housekeeper over your fiancé. But I couldn't keep watching you be deceived. Daniel stood in stunned silence, looking between Rosa's frightened but resolute face and Vanessa's panicked expression. Vanessa, he said slowly, is this true? Vanessa's carefully constructed composure shattered completely. Tears filled her eyes. Not tears of manipulation this time, but real, raw tears of a woman cornered by her own choices. Daniel, I can explain. Please just let me explain. Then explain, Daniel said, his voice barely above a whisper, though it carried the weight of a man's entire world crumbling. Explain why you were stealing from me. Explain why the woman I was about to marry, the woman I trusted completely, was secretly building an exit plan behind my back while planning our engagement gala in front of me. Vanessa sank into the nearby chair, her elegant gown pooling around her like a collapsed dream. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she whispered. When Caroline first suggested it, I told her no. I said I would never do something like that to you. But then she kept talking about prenups, about how your family's lawyers would leave me with nothing if things ever fell apart, about how every wealthy man eventually gets bored and moves on. Got scared, Daniel. I got scared of losing everything, of going back to having nothing the way I grew up. So I started putting money aside. Just in case. Just in case, Daniel repeated hollowly. You were preparing for our marriage to fail before it even began. I didn't know how else to protect myself. Vanessa cried, her voice breaking apart. You don't understand what it's like, coming from nothing and suddenly being surrounded by people who remind you every single day that you don't truly belong, that you're one mistake away from being sent back to where you came from. I was scared, Daniel. I was so scared of losing this life that I became someone I don't even recognize anymore. For the first time since the confrontation began, Vanessa looked directly at Rosa, and in her eyes something shifted. Not forgiveness for what she had almost done, not yet, but a flicker of the recognition she had buried for 3 long years. I almost burned your hand, Vanessa whispered, her voice trembling with the horror of her own actions. Over a dress, while hiding a secret far worse than anything you could have ever done to me. Rosa said nothing. There was nothing left to say. The truth was finally in the open, and now everyone in the room would have to face what came next. The consequences of that single night would reshape 3 lives forever, and reveal who truly deserved a second chance. Daniel stood by the window for a long time after Vanessa's confession, staring out at the manicured gardens below, saying nothing. Caroline had quietly excused herself from the house entirely, her friendship with Vanessa evaporating the moment consequences appeared on the horizon. Rosa remained near the doorway, unsure whether to leave or stay, her wrist still tender from where Vanessa had gripped it. "Rosa," Daniel finally said, turning around. "Thank you. For your honesty. For your courage. I know it wasn't easy to tell me something like this, especially after what just happened to you." "I should have told you sooner, sir," Rosa said softly. "I was afraid no one would believe me." "I believe you," Daniel said firmly. "And I am so sorry for what she almost did to you. That should never have happened in this house or anywhere to anyone." Vanessa, still seated in the chair, wiped her tears with trembling hands. "Daniel, please. I know I don't deserve it, but please let me explain everything. Not to defend what I did to Rosa, there's no defending that. But to explain how I became someone capable of doing it." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he sat down across from her, his expression unreadable. "I'm listening." "When I first met you," Vanessa began, her voice raw, "I was working 2 jobs in Cleveland, barely making rent, and I still found time to volunteer every Saturday morning at the community kitchen. Do you remember that? That's where we actually met, not at some gala or fundraiser. You were there with your father's foundation, and I was serving soup, and you told me I had kind eyes." Daniel's jaw tightened at the memory. "I remember. I loved that version of myself," Vanessa continued, tears falling freely now. "But then I entered this world, your world, and everyone kept telling me I needed to change to survive here. Caroline taught me which fork to use. Your mother's friends taught me how to speak about people like Rosa, like they were furniture instead of human beings. And somewhere along the way, I started believing that softness made me weak, that kindness made me a target, that the only way to survive in this world was to become as cold and calculating as everyone around me." "That's not an excuse," Daniel said quietly. "I know," Vanessa whispered. "It's not an excuse. It's just the truth. And the truth is, I'm ashamed of who I became. I'm ashamed that I almost hurt an innocent woman today because I was more afraid of losing a dress than I was of losing my humanity." Rosa, still standing near the door, felt something unexpected stir in her chest as she listened to Vanessa's confession. Not forgiveness exactly, but a flicker of the same compassion she had always tried to hold on to, even in the hardest moments of her own life. She thought of her late husband, who used to say that everyone carries wounds nobody can see, and that judgment without understanding was its own kind of cruelty. "Miss Sterling," Rosa said quietly, surprising everyone in the room. "May I say something?" Vanessa looked up, startled. "Of course. I forgive you," Rosa said simply. "Not because what you did was right. It wasn't. You hurt me, and you frightened me. And for a moment I truly believed you might burn my hand over a dress. But I also see now that you were hurting long before I burned that fabric. Pain doesn't excuse cruelty, ma'am, but sometimes understanding it can be the first step toward healing it." Vanessa broke down completely at Rosa's words, sobbing into her hands. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Maybe not yet," Rosa said gently. "But maybe you can earn it if you choose to become someone worth forgiving." Daniel, watching this exchange between the 2 women, felt something shift inside himself as well. He had spent 3 years slowly watching Vanessa change and had told himself it was simply the pressure of their world, not truly wanting to face what it meant about her character, or about his own choice to keep quiet for so long. Rosa's grace in this moment reminded him of the kind of person he wanted to build a life with, someone whose kindness didn't waver even when she had every right to be furious. Vanessa, Daniel said slowly, I think we need some time apart. Not necessarily forever, but time for you to figure out who you actually want to be. Separate from Caroline, separate from the money, separate from the fear of losing this world. And time for me to figure out if I can trust you again. Vanessa nodded through her tears, understanding, for perhaps the first time in years, that actions had consequences that even wealth couldn't erase. What about the missing money? We'll handle that through my family's lawyers, quietly, without destroying your reputation, provided you return every dollar and agree to real accountability, Daniel said. I'm not trying to ruin you, Vanessa. I'm trying to give you the chance to actually save yourself. As Daniel spoke, Rosa quietly excused herself from the room, gathering her things, her mind suddenly remembering Sophia's recital. She glanced at the clock, 6:40. If she hurried, she might just make it in time to see her daughter sing. She had no idea that Daniel Whitfield was about to change her life forever, in a way she never could have imagined. Months later, a knock at Rosa's door would reveal how far one act of honesty and forgiveness had traveled. Rosa made it to Sophia's recital with 8 minutes to spare, slipping quietly into a seat in the back row of the school auditorium just as her daughter stepped onto the stage. She watched Sophia sing with tears in her eyes, not from the burn on her wrist, which had already begun to heal, but from the overwhelming relief of simply being present for a moment that mattered. 3 weeks passed after that difficult night at the Whitfield mansion. Rosa continued working in the household, though the atmosphere had changed entirely. Vanessa had moved out temporarily, staying at a small apartment in the city while she worked with a therapist to understand the patterns that had shaped her behavior over the past 3 years. Caroline Ashford Pierce, exposed as the architect of the financial scheme, quietly disappeared from New York's social circles altogether. Her reputation unable to survive the truth becoming public among their shared friends. Daniel personally visited Rosa's small apartment in Bridgeport one Saturday afternoon, something he had never done in 3 years of her employment. He sat at her kitchen table, drinking coffee from a chipped mug, and told her something that changed the course of her family's life forever. Rosa, I've been thinking about what you did that night, he said. You could have stayed silent about the money. You could have let Vanessa's secret remain hidden, and simply taken whatever compensation I offered you for what she almost did to your hand. Instead, you chose honesty even though it put you at risk. That kind of integrity is rare, and I want to do something meaningful to honor it. Daniel explained that he was establishing a scholarship fund through his family's foundation, specifically for children of household staff and working-class families across Connecticut, funded partially by the recovered money from Vanessa's hidden account. The first scholarship, he told her, was already reserved for Sophia and Miguel, covering their education from that point forward through college, regardless of what happened between Rosa and the Whitfield household in the future. Rosa wept at her kitchen table, overwhelmed by a kindness she had never expected, especially from the wealthy world that had almost hurt her so deeply. I don't know what to say, sir. Say you'll let an old friend help an old friend, Daniel said, smiling gently. Because that's what you've become to this family, Rosa, whether either of us expected it or not. 6 months later, on a warm spring evening, Rosa received an unexpected invitation to the Whitfield estate, not as staff but as a guest. Curious and a little nervous, she arrived to find a small, intimate gathering in the garden, string lights glowing softly among the trees. Daniel stood beside Vanessa, who looked different somehow, lighter, more like the woman from the photographs Rosa had once seen in an old newspaper clipping about a young volunteer serving soup in Cleveland. Rosa, Vanessa said, walking toward her with genuine warmth in her eyes. Thank you for coming. Over the following months, Vanessa had thrown herself into real change, not performative charity events for social media attention, but quiet, consistent work. She volunteered weekly at the same community kitchen where she had first met Daniel. She personally apologized to every staff member she had mistreated over the years, including offering Rosa a heartfelt, private apology that Rosa would remember for the rest of her life. She returned every dollar of the hidden funds and began therapy to understand why she had allowed fear to reshape her character so completely. "I wanted you to be here tonight," Vanessa continued, "because Daniel and I decided to move forward with our engagement, but only because I've finally become someone I actually respect again. And I wanted the person who helped me find my way back to that version of myself to be part of celebrating it." Rosa smiled, feeling the warmth of genuine forgiveness settle into her heart at last. "I'm proud of you, Ms. Sterling. Truly. Call me Vanessa," she said, squeezing Rosa's hand gently, careful and tender where once there had been cruelty. "Just Vanessa." As the evening continued, Rosa watched Sophia and Miguel playing near the garden fountain, laughing freely, their futures secured through an act of honesty that had once terrified their mother beyond words. She thought about that terrible moment in the ironing room, the hot iron inches from her skin, and how close everything had come to going so differently. But sometimes Rosa realized our darkest moments become the very doorway through which the greatest transformations arrive. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us brave enough to face the truth. What would you do if you were in Rosa's place? Vanessa Sterling was never born cruel. She became lost in a world that taught her kindness was weakness, until one honest, frightened housekeeper reminded her who she truly was. Rosa Martinez, despite everything, chose grace over bitterness, truth over silence, and in doing so, changed not only her own family's future but helped a broken woman find her way home to herself. The lesson is simple, yet profound. Wealth can change our circumstances, but it should never change our character. And sometimes, the smallest act of honesty can heal wounds far deeper than we ever imagined. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like. It truly helps our channel grow so we can keep bringing you stories like Rosa and Vanessa's. Subscribe if you believe kindness and honesty can change lives, even in the darkest moments. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that redemption is always possible. And tell us in the comments below, what would you have done in Rosa's place? We read every single comment, and we can't wait to hear your thoughts. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.